We will now proceed with the 2022 Annual General Meeting of CIRA. I'd like to start by saying that we received feedback from prior AGMs and have worked hard to incorporate that feedback wherever possible. This year is unique from the prior two because we're delivering the AGM in a hybrid fashion. Our goal is to deliver a high-quality experience for both remote and in-person participants. As with previous years, we will send out a survey and will welcome feedback so we can continuously improve. The formal business of the AGM includes highlights from CIRA's audited financials for the year ending March 31st, 2022, delivered by my colleague, Crystal Nett, the Chair of the Finance, Audit, Investment and Risk Management Committee, a motion to reappoint CIRA's auditor, a motion to confirm bylaw changes, and other business related to a member proposal. Members received emails yesterday and earlier today with links to materials posted on the Canadians Connected website. I encourage you to review these materials if you haven't already. They include today's agenda, the minutes of last year's AGM, CIRA's audited financials, and report to members, the proposed bylaw changes, the member proposal, and CIRA's response to the proposal, the AGM Code of Conduct and Procedural Guide to the AGM. I will take the next few minutes to review key procedural matters. This will include voting eligibility and procedures for the motions, comments and voting. Once I am done the review of the procedures, similar to last year, we will do a demo test of the voting procedure to ensure everyone understands the process. Before we get into the AGM procedures, I'd like to introduce the dedicated and hardworking members of your board and thank them for their contributions and support to CIRA. From left to right on the slide, we have directors Lisa Abode, Edith Almeida-Cote, Colleen Arnold, Gwen Boscheman, Ann Butler, Andrew Escobar, Eric Hill, Crystal Nett, Rob Villeneuve, Alur Sully, and Samantha Ventresca, and board advisors Byron Holland, John Demko, and Charles Noir. Thank you again for all of your dedication and guidance in CIRA's fulfillment of its mandate and programs that enable a trusted internet for Canadians. As a member-based organization, only eligible CIRA members may vote or second a motion, ask questions, provide comments, and vote. As per CIRA's bylaws and the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, in order to vote during this AGM, you must have been a member 21 days prior to today's AGM, namely August 25th, 2022, and continue to be a member as of today. For transparency purposes, we do allow non-members to attend our AGM, but they are not eligible to participate. I'd like to highlight a few important procedures related to motions. When a motion is presented, for simplicity, only members attending in person will be asked to move or second the motion. To do so, raise your hand and state your name for the record in the minutes. In the case of the member proposals, members will only need to second the motion, as the proposing member will be recorded as having moved the motion. There will be an opportunity for members to ask questions and provide comments for each of the motions presented. The process for asking questions will be the same as the way you ask questions in CIRA's leadership team. Members who are present in person should be logged into the webcast platform throughout the AGM. If you are not logged in yet, please do so now so you can ask questions and vote. The procedure for asking questions will be the same for both members present and in person and joining via webcast. This will help ensure equity and provide the opportunities for members to upvote questions to ensure the highest priority questions are answered. Please use the Slido function in the platform for questions only. Please note that during the motions, the questions must relate to the motion being presented. Please keep typed questions short and concise, no more than 240 characters. Responses will be limited to 2 minutes. Members joining us in person who wish to comment during the comment period for a motion or wish to raise a general procedural demand, such as objections or points of procedure, are asked to raise their hand and a CIRA representative will come to you with a microphone. Members joining us by webcast who wish to comment during the comment period for a motion or who wish to raise a general procedural demand, such as objections or points of procedure, must use the call-in function by calling 1-888-886-7786. We've also shared this information in the chat. Please keep comments short and concise. They will be limited to 1 minute. When you call in, please make sure to have your name, member ID, or membership email address ready for authentication. As a reminder, Your member ID can be found in your CIRA member profile by signing in on the member website at member.cira.ca. For those with French language profiles, at membre.ace.ca. This phone line is now open and will remain open through the proceedings. If you are calling with a procedural question, please let the operator know and you will be put to the front of the queue. Members attending virtually and in person can also communicate with each other through the live chat on the platform. Please ensure that all questions and comments adhere to the AGM Code of Conduct. We will be adhering to the time limits I have set out so that we may address the business we have to get through today. To the extent we don't get to your question, CIRA staff will follow up with you. Eligible members will be asked to vote during these proceedings. Both members joining us in person and via webcast are asked to cast their vote electronically through the webcast platform. Members in the room, please make sure you're logged in throughout the proceedings. It is important that all of you participate in this practice vote, not only for your benefit, but for ours as well. When a vote is called, you will see the motion appear on your screen. Simply click on your selection and confirm it, and your vote will automatically be registered. You will have 2 minutes to submit your vote. A countdown will be provided. Members in the room who don't have a device will be asked to raise their hand with their voting card. Please keep your hand up until asked to put it down to ensure that your vote is recorded. Yeses, nos, and abstentions will be counted separately. So that everyone is familiar with this process ahead of an actual vote, we will run a quick demo. Please start the test vote. Those who are in person without a device, please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition of the motion. Please raise your hand if you wish to abstain from voting on the motion.
There were 85 yeses, 5 noes, and 21 abstentions.
I now call to order the annual general meeting. In accordance with our bylaws, Bridget LeBlanc-Lapointe will act as secretary and I will act as chair. Bridget, how many members are present?
There are 157 members present.
Thank you, Bridget. With that, I declare the meeting duly constituted, and we will now proceed with the business at hand. Today's agenda was posted on CIRA's AGM website on August 15th, 2022. Unless there are any objections in the next 30 seconds, we will proceed with the agenda as distributed. Are there any objections to the agenda?
Not on the phone.
Yeah, can I be heard? Okay, good. I rise on a point of order on the agenda, and specifically, the point I want to raise is that the three motions that I put in more than 3 months ago, gave CIRA adequate notice, have been compressed or collapsed into one motion. On September 7th, a week ago, CIRA sent out an email saying that there were going to be 3 motions. And because CIRA is a member-run organization, it must follow the rules of order. You're not allowed to do that. The point of rising on a point of order is, especially having heard Cory Doctorow's comment about how democracy should work, you need to raise that point of order at the outset. And if it isn't raised at the outset, it could be deemed as being acceptable. Collapsing 3 distinct motions into one is not acceptable. That's my point of order. Thank you.
Mr. Barasco, are you making a demand or a motion?
Neither. I'm raising a point of order.
One moment, I'll confer. There has been a demand to divide the member proposal into 3 motions. The 3 items are similar in nature, and with the view of conducting an orderly meeting, the 3 items should be discussed and voted upon as a single matter. Accordingly, my determination as chair is to proceed with a single motion. We'll now proceed with the verification of the 2021 AGM minutes. Once again, you can comment by calling in or raising your hand in the room. A copy of the minutes of the 2021 Annual General Meeting was made available to all members through CIRA's AGM website on August 15, 2022. If there are no objections in the next 30 seconds, I will verify the minutes as correct. Once again, you can comment by calling in or if in person by raising your hand. Are there any objections?
None on the phone.
The minutes stand verified. I'd now like to introduce Crystal Nett, Chair of CIRA's Finance, Audit, Investment and Risk Management Committee, who will present the highlights of the auditor's report and financial statements for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2022.
Thank you, Jill. Good afternoon. I'm honored to be the chair of the Finance, Audit, Investment and Risk Management Committee, which I will refer to simply as the FAIR Committee this afternoon. Our job as the FAIR Committee is to assist the board in fulfilling its oversight responsibilities for CIRA's financial reporting, audit, investment, and risk management processes. To put it more concretely, we ensure that CIRA's budgets and financial activities are aligned with the organization's objectives, that the risks are identified and managed, and that the organization has the financial resources to achieve its goals. As part of our mandate, the FAIR Committee reviews the financial performance of CIRA on a quarterly basis. We also review CIRA's proposed audit plan, the performance and services provided by the external auditor, the resulting audited financial statements, the independent auditor's report, and the audit findings report and management letter, if any are issued. Today, I'm going to share the results of the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2022. Please avail yourselves of the full copy of the financial statements and the independent auditor's report on our website at cira.ca/financials. I am happy to report that once again, we have received a clean bill of health. And as the chair of the Fair Committee, I can tell you that that's a very happy day when you get to hear that news. Our external auditors at Welch are of the opinion that our financial statements present fairly in all material respects CIRA's financial position, the operational results, and changes in net assets and cash flows. Welch's audit was completed in accordance with the accounting standards of a not-for-profit organization, and I'm pleased to report that a clean audit opinion was received from the auditors. To keep my presentation brief, and because we've already had a few of these statistics shared with you, I'll speak only to some key financial and operational aspects of CIRA's business. But I encourage you to review the complete documents online, and again, that's at cira.ca/financials. So just a few highlights as depicted on the slide, and these are only related to the past fiscal year. First, CIRA remains in a strong financial position. We have a healthy statement of financial position, or balance sheet as it was previously named, with $47.8 million in total assets, of which $35.8 million is held within our restricted investments portfolio and $14.5 million in net assets. Our investments are managed by Phillips Hager and North with oversight from the Fair Committee. Thankfully, we had a solid year, and the CIRA investment portfolio finished the fiscal year with a return of just under 3.5%, ahead of its benchmark by approximately 2%. CIRA achieved an overall increase in revenue of 14%, or $4.4 million, over the same 12-month period as the prior year, with over $29.9 million in .ca revenues. Our core .ca domain business experienced another strong net domains under management, or DUM, growth of 5.4% in fiscal year 22. And as previously discussed by Byron and others, this was driven by a changing external environment and supported by the third year of a mass and digital advertising campaign. We should note, however, that this growth rate is down from the 8.3% rate in fiscal year 21. The growth was primarily driven by existing brick and mortar businesses continuing to pivot online to generate revenue as pandemic-driven restrictions and periodic lockdowns continued. We ended the fiscal year with almost 3.3 million DUM, an absolute increase of approximately 168,000 domains over the closing balance from the prior fiscal year. As the country and its economy begins to transition out of the pandemic and return to a new normal, we anticipate the demand for domains will continue to soften. And as Byron mentioned, we've already begun to see this over the first quarter of fiscal year 23, both with .ca and other CCTLDs, or country code top-level domains. Whether growth returns to a lower pre-pandemic fiscal year 20 environment or settles somewhere between pre and during pandemic levels remains to be seen. Further clouding the future is a high inflation rate that we're all feeling daily in our books, and the threat of a recession, both of which impact .ca's small business customers. As was previously discussed by the management team, our strategy to invest and diversify services is gaining further traction. Our cyber DNS and registry revenues grew 60% over the last year from $3.4 million, and we ended the past fiscal year with over $5.5 million in diversified service revenues. This is really a tremendous accomplishment for an organization transitioning from being a single service company to a multi-product entity, servicing both domestic and international markets. As we continue with our 5-year strategic plan, we will continue to focus on optimizing our financial goals and our key performance indicators across all programs, services, and activities. That's a very short highlight reel of CIRA and what a wonderful year they had. I'm pleased to have offered you this high-level overview, being fully aware that it only begins to scratch the surface. Again, I invite you to review our full audited financial statements presented online at cira.ca/financials. And of course, we are more than happy to answer any questions you might have with respect to the financial statements in the question period following my remarks. I will now hand it back over to our chair, Jill Kowalchuk. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. We are making a slight adjustment to our original plan to provide the opportunities for members to ask questions, even though this is not related to a specific motion. If you submitted questions to CIRA prior to the AGM, we ask that you type your questions into Slido to be fair to all members. Do any members have any specific questions with respect to the financials? There is a question. So how much did the marketing cost to get those new domains? Crystal?
I do not have that level of detail with me. That is something that we could request that management look into, and whether they'd be able to get it to us today is unlikely, but we could certainly agree to get that to the audience.
If there are any other questions, we will take them on Slido. There is a question. Did you have a budget for marketing to approve? Crystal?
Yes, we had a budget. I do not have that breakdown with me, however.
Well, we had 7 minutes allocated for questions. I will give a few more minutes, and if there are no further questions submitted in Slido, in the interest of time, we will move on. We will now be presenting a motion for the reappointment of CIRA's auditor. As Crystal Net has explained, Welsh LLP has agreed to serve as CIRA's auditor until the next annual general meeting. Before I invite questions or discussion, may I please have a member in the room move the motion to reappoint Welsh LLP as CIRA's auditor?
John Demko is recorded as having moved the motion to reappoint Welsh LLP as CIRA's auditor.
Thank you, Bridget. Will a member in the room please second the motion?
Crystal Nat is recorded as having seconded the motion to reappoint Welsh LLP as CIRA's auditor.
Thank you, Bridget. We will now open the floor for questions related to the motion to reappoint the auditors. Both members present in person and joining via webcast can view and type questions to be read aloud using the question tool in the webcast platform. Questions can be upvoted by members. Questions are limited to 240 characters typed. Responses to questions will be limited to 2 minutes. We have allocated a total of 7 minutes for the question period. Bridget will alert us when we have reached the time period. Do any members have any specific questions with respect to the reappointment of Welsh LLP as CIRA's auditors?
We have a few questions. Can you hear me? How many successive years has this auditor been appointed? By Brad Delmage?
Sorry. I will ask Crystal Net to respond to this question.
So I'm responding to the question, how many successive years has this auditor been appointed? And through the process of an RFP, Welch was appointed, and they just completed their first year of being the auditor. And the audit reappointment is subject to today's motion that's on the floor.
We have a second question. Who is the auditor, the audit partner at Welsh specifically?
So I can also respond to that. Bryden McMaster is our audit partner, and he has actually joined us in the room today.
Again, while we have allocated 7 minutes for the questions, in the interest of time, I will give a few more seconds for any further questions. Seeing none, we will move on. Members joining us in person who wish to provide a comment to the motion are asked to raise their hand, and a microphone will be provided. Members who are joining us virtually who wish to provide a comment must use the call-in function by calling 1-888-886-7786. Remember, you will need to provide your name, member ID, or member email to authenticate. Please keep comments short and concise and only related to this motion. Comments will be limited to 1 minute. We have allocated a total of 7 minutes for the comments. Bridget will alert us when we have reached our time limit. Are there any members who have specific comments about this motion?
You love it.
Madam Chair, there are no phone comments about this motion.
Thank you. I see no other comments. We will now proceed to voting on the motion as set out on the screen. The motion reads, "Be it resolved that Welsh LLP be reappointed as CIRA's auditor to hold office until the next annual general meeting or until their successors are duly appointed, and that the board of directors be authorized to establish the remuneration of the auditors." You will see the motion appear on your screen. Simply click on your selection, submit, and confirm, and your vote will automatically be registered. Please vote now. Those who are in person without a device, please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion. Thank you. You may put your hand down. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition of the motion. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you wish to abstain from voting on the motion.
All the votes are in, so there are 103 yeses, 1 no, and 7 abstentions.
The motion is carried. Welsh LLP will serve as CIRA's auditors until the next annual general meeting. Thank you, Crystal. We will now proceed with the bylaw amendments. We will now present a motion for the confirmation of the bylaw amendments made by the board. As per section 7.1 of CIRA's bylaw, any changes to CIRA's bylaw are first made by the board and then confirmed by the members at the next meeting of the members. The board approved these changes to CIRA's bylaw during its meeting on July 20th, 2022. These changes are now being presented to the members at this AGM for confirmation. The proposed changes to CIRA's bylaw are housekeeping changes to improve organizational processes and efficiencies. The changes were included in the materials posted on CIRA's website. There are 5 changes being made to CIRA's bylaw. I will walk through each of the changes, show the relevant provision in the bylaw with the change on the slides, and explain the rationale for each of the changes. The first change relates to the commencement of director terms, and specifically when new directors start on the CIRA board after they are elected. Previously, section 3.6 of CIRA's bylaw provided that director terms commence 30 days after a director election. This is not common practice and resulted in a delay period of 30 days before directors elected by the members began to serve on the board. The change deletes the reference to 30 days, which allows directors to start serving CIRA immediately upon their election without delay. The second change relates to electronic meetings. Section 4.6 of CIRA's bylaw previously provided that if the directors agreed and consented, they could participate in board meetings using telephonic or electronic means or other internet-enabled conferencing. For completeness, the change extends this practice to committee meetings. This reflects current practice as committee meetings of the board are generally held virtually. The third change relates to a second or casting vote. Section 4.7 of CIRA's bylaw previously provided that at all meetings of the board, every question would be decided by a majority of the votes cast on the question. And in the event of an equality of votes, the chair of the meeting would have a second or casting vote. Given the chair, a second or casting vote is undemocratic and may put the chair in a difficult position. As such, the bylaw has been amended to specify that in the event of an equality of votes, the chair of the meeting does not have a second or casting vote, to align with better governance practice. The fourth change relates to quorum. Section 13.9A of CIRA's bylaw previously only took into account members who attended the meeting in person for the purposes of calculating quorum, which did not take into account virtual or hybrid meetings. As such, this section of the bylaw has been amended to remove the words "in person" to include both members who attended a meeting in person as well as members who attended a meeting online. Furthermore, the quorum provision in Section 13.9b was previously ambiguous. As such, the revised bylaw adopts the standard for quorum set out in Section 164, subsection 3 of Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act. It provides that if quorum is present at the opening of the meeting of members, the members present may proceed with the business of the meeting, even if quorum is lost. This is the customary practice of most for-profit and not-for-profit corporations. Finally, the last change relates to the publication that governs CIRA's rules of order. Previously, Section 16.1 of CIRA's bylaw provided that meetings of the board and members would be governed by Weinberg Society meetings. Weinberg's is an older version and has been renamed Nathan and Goldfarb's company meetings for share capital and non-share capital corporations. The rules of order in Nathan's are generally consistent with Weinberg's, except Nathan applies to both for-profit and non-profit corporations and has been modernized. The bylaw has been amended to reflect the most recent version of this publication. The members will now be asked to confirm these amendments to CIRA's bylaws as approved by the board. Since the bylaws were made and approved by the board as a package, members may only confirm the amendments in their entirety, and further amendments by members will not be permitted. Before I invite questions or discussion, may I please have a member in the room move the motion to confirm the bylaw amendments?
Matthew Gamble is recorded as having moved the motion to confirm the bylaw amendments.
Thank you, Bridget. Will a member in the room please second the motion?
Ann Butler is recorded as having seconded the motion to confirm the bylaw amendments.
Thank you, Bridget. We will now open the floor for questions related to the motion to confirm the amended bylaw. Both members present in person and joining webcast can view and type in questions to be read aloud using the question tool in the webcast platform. Questions can be upvoted by members. Questions are limited to 240 characters typed. Responses to questions will be limited to 2 minutes. We have allocated a total of 7 minutes for the question period. Bridget will alert us when we have reached our time limit. Do any members have any specific questions with respect to the bylaw amendments? We have a question. In the event of a tie vote, what is the new process for resolving the vote? I will ask Albert Chang, CIRA's corporate counsel, to respond.
Hi, Matthew. Thank you for the question. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Albert Chang. I'm legal counsel with CIRA, and I've been with CIRA for a little over 15 years right now. And I think the question relates to the equality of votes at the board and the chair no longer having a casting vote. And if in the event that ever happened, what would have to happen is the board would then have to rediscuss the issue and then have another vote. So the fact that they have not had a majority decision means that the issue needs to be discussed further by the board. So the matter would just have to go back to the board for further discussion. Thank you for the question, Matthew.
Thank you, Albert. We have a few other questions, but I believe they all are the same as the question just asked. Matt was faster at typing. So I am not going to read out those questions. I'm going to go to Wendy's. Bridget, let me know if you feel I should read out those other 2 questions. I am understanding that should a quorum be lost due to a loss of all virtual attendees, the business of the meeting will still be conducted in binding. I will ask Albert Chang, CIRA's corporate counsel, to respond. Albert?
Hi, Wendy. Thank you for the question. That is correct. The meeting would still continue even if quorum is lost throughout the meeting. This is actually the standard set out in the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, and it's the standard that most for-profit and non-profit corporations adopt. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you. We have a question that I will read, and then I will use my own words to describe what I think the question is. The question is, I move to sever the question into the first 4 questions and final one about the rules used. I believe the question is related to combining all of the changes, separating the changes. Bridget, can you help?
Sure. So I think that one of the members is asking to keep the first 4 changes to be considered as one, and then to divide the 5th change to be considered separately. As per the procedures relating to the meeting, any motions or points of orders or objections should be done by calling the toll-free line so that the person who is making the motion can clarify the nature of their motion and be prepared to speak to why they're making the motion. So I will invite Mr. Dalmage to call in using the toll-free number should he wish to make a motion.
While we wait for that, there is another question. From Oliver, will amendments be voted individually or as a whole? I'll ask Albert Chang to respond to the question.
Hi, Olivier. Thank you for the question. All the amendments will be voted on at one time as a whole. This is actually the process set out under the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act as well as CIRA's bylaw. Section 1701 of CIRA bylaw provides that bylaw amendments are first voted on by the board and then they're confirmed by the members. This is also set out in Section 152 sub 1 of the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act. So as Jill pointed out, the board voted on these revised bylaws and they approved them on July 20th, 2022, and they're now being presented to the membership for confirmation. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Albert. There is a question, how shall we vote if we agree with some updates and disagree with others? I'll ask Albert to respond to this question.
Again, so thank you for the question. That really is up to you for how you decide to vote. But once again, this is not our decision. This is what's set out under the Act, where the Act specifies that the board approves the bylaw as a package, and then it's presented to the members for confirmation. So if the bylaw amendments do not get approved, what would happen is we would then just go back to the old version of the bylaw, which is the 2016 version of the bylaw. But again, this is what's set out in the Act and set out in our bylaw as well. Thank you for the question.
We have 1 more minute until the question period is closed. I'll ask the operator if we have a question on the line.
We have a comment from Mr. Dalmage.
We will take comments. We will take comments following the close of the question period, so I'll ask it to be held. We will now proceed with comments from members. Members joining us in person who wish to provide a comment to the motion are asked to raise their hand and a microphone will be provided. Members who are joining us virtually who wish to provide a comment must use the call-in function. Please keep comments short and concise and only related to this motion. Comments will be limited to 1 minute. We have allocated a total of 7 minutes for the comments. Bridget will alert us when we have reached our time limit. Are there any members with specific comments about this motion? I believe we have one online, virtually.
Yes,
Operator?
yes, Madam Chair, Mr. Brett Dalmage.
Hello. I ask that the motion be severed into the first four parts, which seem fairly straightforward and procedural. And the last one is somewhat too. I am concerned, though, that the organization doesn't use more common Robert's rules or Bernau's, which are used by Parliament and are a Canadian kind of standard. These rules govern member participations in AGMs like this. So to my mind, they should be procedural rules that are readily accessible and more widely known to Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you making a demand or a motion?
Caller has disconnected.
The comment period is still open. I will leave a few additional seconds to see if there are any other comments or if the caller would like to dial back in with a demand or a motion. I would like to clarify that demands or motions are both procedures. Operator, is there any individuals on the call-in line for comment?
Not currently.
Thank you. We will now proceed to voting on the motion as set out on the screen. The motion reads, "Be it resolved that the CIRA members hereby confirm the amended bylaw number 1 approved by the board on July 20th, 2022. The aforementioned amendments are confirmed effective today in accordance with the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act." You will see the motion appear on your screen. Simply click on your selection, submit, and then confirm your vote will automatically be registered. Please vote now. For those who are in person without a device, please raise your hand if you are in favor of the motion. Thank you. You may put your hand down. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition of the motion. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you wish to abstain from voting on the motion.
There are 97 votes in favor, 8 votes against, and 5 abstentions.
The motion is carried. The bylaw of the organization is confirmed as amended. A member proposal, including 3 motions, has been submitted by member Alex Barasco. This is the 3rd year in a row that Mr. Barasco has submitted the proposals to CIRA's AGM. In response to members' feedback regarding the lengthy duration of our past 2 AGMs, we have opted to consolidate them into one motion as all deal with the same issue. Mr. Barasco submitted proposal requests, the disclosure of confidential documents prepared by Mercer, Boyden, and Stratford, and Dr. LeBlanc that date as far back as 2015, as well as requesting the disclosure of the particulars of those engagements. Bridget LeBlanc-Lapointe, CIRA's corporate secretary, and a lawyer with Norton Rose Fulbright will provide the CIRA board's response to these motions in a few moments. But in the interest of full transparency, we felt it is important to bring the following to your attention. Member Alex Barasco was a director on CIRA's board from 2016 to 2019. It is important to advise members that he initiated a legal proceeding against CIRA in 2020, which continues today. In this legal proceeding against CIRA, he is asking the court to appoint him as a director, arising from concerns he has raised in relation to the election of CIRA directors in the fall of 2019. The legal action has continued despite his failing to be elected by the members in the fall of 2020. In addition to demanding to be appointed to the board, he is also seeking to have CIRA produce certain documents that he claims he was entitled to receive when serving as a CIRA director. CIRA maintains that this legal proceeding is without merit, and we continue to defend it. The CIRA Board of Directors do not support this member proposal and recommend that members vote against it. I will now address the process for the member proposal. I will read the motion and seek a seconder who is present in person. The proposing member will be recorded to have moved his own motion. Prior to the discussion of the motion, the proposing member will have 6 minutes to present his rationale to members. CIRA's corporate secretary, Bridget LeBlanc-Lapointe, will have 2 minutes to provide the CIRA's board response to the motion. I will note we had originally allocated 2 minutes for both sides, but based on Mr. Barasco's earlier email, he indicated this wasn't fair, so in the interest of fairness, he will receive the full 6 minutes if he chooses. We will follow a similar process for questions, then comments, then vote on the motion as we did for the previous motions. Following the general comment period, the proposing member will have 1 minute to provide a final comment. Members can also discuss the member proposal with each other through the live chat on the platform. Please keep the conversation respectful. We will now proceed to discuss the motion relating to the member proposal. The motion calls for the following. Be it resolved that CIRA should disclose the Mercer study report that CIRA cites, including the terms of reference given to Mercer and the cost incurred. The Boyden and Stratford studies that CIRA cites, including the terms of reference given to each firm and the costs incurred. Any reports developed by Dr. LeBlanc on overall board governance, including the terms of reference given to him and the costs incurred. The member submitting the proposal, Mr. Barasco, is deemed to have moved the motion. Will a member in the room please second the motion? Can we pass the mic to the member that is willing to second the motion? Do we have a second on the motion? We will let Mr. Barasco present his motion, and then we will ask again. Mr. Barasco, you have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you. And I'm hoping that you'll allow people from online across Canada to second the motion as well. I think you all now have a good example and good evidence of how democracy works, especially following Corey Doctorow's presentation. So motion 1, which is a separate and distinct motion, we all live in a world where people make stuff up. We also live in a world of American-style politics, as you can see today and every other day. Canadians know that you can't say stuff privately or publicly unless there is clear evidence in support. The issue of CEO salary disclosure has been decided, so there's no point in rehashing it all over again. It's done. CIRA must disclose the information as it is the will of this CIRA membership. CIRA has stated it is a private company. It is not a private company. It operates as a private company, but a private company has shareholders and investors. CIRA does not have shareholders. It has members who must act like shareholders. While CIRA gets no government funding, it gets a free .ca domain name. What is that worth of that domain name? Is it $1 million? To operate .ca. It is like Crown land that it gets free use of. CIRA refuses to provide the information because Mercer told them so, but they refused to release the study, the terms of reference, or the costs. Do you want to know the salary of Brady Kachuk, Vladimir Guerrero, Tobias Lutka, who runs Shopify, Justin Trudeau? Look it up on the web. All publicly traded companies disclose their CEO salaries. The Sunshine List in Ontario discloses over 500,000 salaries, including hospitals, universities, and many others. There is absolutely no evidence that salary disclosures harms any recruitment whatsoever. So the question that members should ask is, does the report really exist? What were the terms of reference? What was the cost? Was it a casual conversation with an email, or was it really some kind of a review and a report? If CIRA relies on its evidence, it must disclose it. Don't be fooled. If there is confidential information, guess what? It can be so marked and redacted. CIRA states categorically that it is open, transparent, and accountable to members. Prove it. Show, don't blow. Motion 2. CIRA has an existential crisis. It is a private company acting in self-interest. Or is it open, transparent, and accountable to its members? It is not accountable to its stakeholders. So 2 quick points. As a not-for-profit with no share capital, CIRA has no shareholders. So, like previously said, the only people that can hold CIRA to account is the members, of which we all are. We are the owners, not the board sitting there or there. They are not the owners. We are the owners of CIRA. The outstanding issue is whether the CIRA board has valid reasons for ignoring the will of its members. Everything they've said has been debunked. It's not a private company. It is it must, because it's a not-for-profit, it must pay, does not pay any taxes, and so it must act in public interest rather than self-interest. So let me ask the additional question. How did this CEO get a significant pay raise in 2019? Helen McDonald was the board chair. She nominated herself to chair the Compensation Review Committee and then handpicked members who recommended the pay increase to the board. The board approved the increase without seeing any of the studies, the Stratford or Boyden studies whatsoever. So do these studies exist, or is somebody still making stuff up? I understand again, with any of those studies, that there could be confidential material. We've all seen confidential material, but even Donald Trump knows that you can redact confidential stuff. We need to know, and we have the right to know, because our fees support that. That is good governance. So motion 3, the condition of CIRA's existence is that it be open and transparent, following fair and sound business practices while being accountable. These are principles established in good governance, and there are many others that are promoted by folks like John Carver, OECD, the CPA documents. If anybody wants to see those guidelines as evidence, send me an email and I'll send it all to you. However, they don't show any evidence of a review that Dr. LeBlanc has done. Was it a casual conversation or a real management consulting study? No terms of reference, no costs. Consulting studies, to be worthwhile, must be independent.
The time has over. Your comments are now complete. I will now ask if we have a seconder for the motion. I understand we have someone on the phone line. Operator, please put them through.
The line is open.
Hello? Yeah, I second this, sure.
Please identify yourself.
Hi, Tyler Trezise.
Tyler Triez is recorded as having seconded the motion of the member proposal.
Thank you. We will now go to the response from the board, and I will ask Bridget LeBlanc-Lapointe to respond. Bridget?
As a Canadian not-for-profit, CIRA follows the requirements of the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, coupled with best practices for good governance. Under the Act, members elect directors, who in turn must manage or supervise the management of the activities and affairs of CIRA. Each director must, as its fiduciary duty, act honestly and in good faith with a view to the best interests of CIRA, and exercise the care and diligence and skill that a reasonably prudent person would exercise in comparable circumstances. In fulfilling their duties, directors may and should call upon experts to provide confidential advice and insight to inform the board's deliberations and decisions. The directors should reflect on this expert advice while considering the perspectives of members and other stakeholders of the organization. A director should have an informed perspective and be prepared to discuss, debate, and deliberate as a board to make decisions that serve the best interests of the organization. A member's role is not to re-examine the materials and various factors underlying a given board decision. Rather, the members elect the directors, and if a member disagrees with the board's decision, the member may vote for new directors in accordance with the Act and CIRA's bylaws. It should be noted that releasing the reports would breach CIRA's agreements with trusted service providers and partners due to disclosing confidential and proprietary information. More importantly, it would run contrary to the principles of good governance on which CIRA has built its foundation. The CIRA Board of Directors does not support this member proposal and recommends that the members vote against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. We will now open the floor for questions related to the motion of the member proposal. Both members present in person and joining via webcast can view and type in questions to be read aloud using the question tool in the webcast platform. Questions can be upvoted by members. Questions are limited to 240 characters typed. Responses to questions will be limited to 2 minutes. We have allocated a total of 7 minutes for the question period. Bridget will alert us when we have reached our time limit. Do any members have any specific questions with respect to this motion? Please indicate at the beginning of your question who you wish your question to be directed to, either the CIRA board and/or Alex Barasco. We have one question for Alex Barasco, who submitted the motion. The question is, do any reports actually exist? I will answer the question. Yes. The next question, how can the board possibly justify going against something the members voted for? I will answer the question. It is the board's responsibility to act in the best interests of the corporation, considering all stakeholders and a variety of other factors. The board did just this, deliberated on the request, and made the decision. The next question, if revealing the content of a report breaches an agreement, then why were these agreements not included in the information provided to us? I will ask our corporate counsel, Albert Chang, to respond.
Hi, so that question came from Don Thompson. So Don, the agreements themselves, so I guess there's two answers to your question. First is the agreements themselves are confidential. And secondly, as pointed out by Bridget, this is not proper governance, right? The board acts in the best interest of the corporation, and they make interest on the best interest of the corporation. So if you don't like the board's decision, as a member, you can vote for the directors. But it's not the role of the member to re-examine a board's decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. The next question to the board. Why can't the confidential information be redacted and disclosed to demonstrate full transparency? As noted, this isn't good governance. In addition, the information is all confidential and would still break the agreement we have with the third parties. We have another question for the board. Is it possible that 3 things are true? Leadership is doing a good job. 2, Alex Barasco is overbearing. 3, CIRA manages a public resource and should divulge advice and be transparent about executive salaries. I'm going to ask my board colleague, Rob Villanelle, to respond to this question.
Thanks, Jill. I'm Rob Villeneuve. I'm a board member with CIRA. I've been on the board for 9 years. I've served on every subcommittee of the board at this point, including compensation and review. It's my belief that this board believes that leadership is doing a fantastic job, has been shared with you today. On question 2, it's not up to me to comment on Alex's motives or his actions. I leave that to the members to decide. On option 3, CIRA does manage a public resource and was asked by members to consider whether sharing compensation of CEO and senior leadership team members should be considered. The board deliberated on this at length and decided not to disclose the salary of the CEO. I'll note that the motion presented by the member to disclose the salaries of any other staff members was turned down by the members. So this just leaves one individual as the target of the inquiry on salary disclosure. I mentioned before that I think that there's a little bit of I mentioned this last year, that I think there's a little bit of a challenge here on the dynamics between accountability and transparency. And it's clear that some members feel that the only way to achieve accountability is transparency, but as been mentioned a few times before, we have a board of 12 voting members. 4 members a year are put up for re-election. I believe the board that sits before you today is almost all new members who've all had a chance to review all of the decisions of the previous board and still feel strongly about this decision.
Thank you, Rob. Final question. Has anyone asked the corporate partners in this process for permission to release the restriction on the information? I will answer, no, we have not, as the confidentiality is only one component of why the board has chosen not to release these information. As noted, when the board makes a decision, good governance, as part of their good governance, they consider a wide range of factors in making such a decision. With that, the 7 minutes for questions is complete. We will now proceed with comments from members. Members joining us in person who wish to provide a comment to the motion are asked to raise their hand and a microphone will be provided. Members who are joining us virtually who wish to provide a comment must use the call-in function. Please keep comments short and concise and only related to this motion. Comments will be limited to 1 minute. We have allocated a total of 7 minutes for the comments. Bridget will alert us when we have reached our time limit. Are there any members who have specific comments about this motion?
We have comments on the phone, Madam Chair.
I understand we have a comment from a person dialing in. Operator?
Yes, Madam Chair. Tricia Rankin-Sebastian, the line is open.
Hi, thank you. I would like to speak in favor of this motion. While I recognize the value in allowing consulting companies to keep their proprietary methods for internal reports confidential, I also believe that members should be able to review the literature that informs the reports created for CIRA by those consultants. While doing research on this motion, I found several recent academic papers which argue that when CEO compensation is disclosed, it does not result in the chilling effect described by the consultants in the CIRA response to the member proposal. Without knowing the chain of knowledge that led to the consultant's recommendations, I find I cannot agree with CIRA's position. I urge members to vote in favor of this member proposal.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do on the phone.
Operator, are there any comments on the dial-in?
Madam Chair, I introduce Daryl Bedford. The line is open.
Yes, Daryl Bedford, I wish to move a motion to split the motion into its three parts.
Folks, we are doing this on the fly, so it may take a few minutes to get organized and work through all of the logistics. May I please ask you to state your name and the motion? Operator?
Yes.
Can you? Thank you.
Daryl Bedford moved that the motion be split into its three parts.
Okay, so I'm just going to repeat the motion and your name. So I believe it was Daryl Bedford. And I will frame the motion as follows. Be it resolved that the member proposal be considered as three separate motions. I'll ask the caller on the line to confirm that that's the motion.
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So we'll now proceed to translating the motion and put it on the screen if you'll kindly give us a few moments.
While the team works on putting the motion on the screen, I will start with a few introductory comments. We will now be presenting the motion to separate the member proposals into three motions. As a reminder, We are no longer dealing with the substance of the main motion regarding the agenda, but only the motion to divide the member proposal motion into 3 motions. If the motion to divide is seconded, then we will allow the proposer to present their motion. We will then proceed with a question period and a comment period on the motion to divide. Once those are complete, we will proceed to vote on the motion to divide. If the motion is carried, once we arrive to the portion, if the motion is carried, one moment. If the motion to separate the member proposals is successfully carried, we will dispense with allowing Mr. Barasco to present 2 minutes on each of the motions, since he has already received 6 minutes to present on the combined motion. Similarly, we will not provide the opportunity for the board to respond again. While we will not allow Mr. Barasco the opportunity to have 2 minutes to comment on each proposal, we will have a 7-minute question period for each one of the 3 motions and a 7-minute comment period. Mr. Barasco will have 1 minute to provide a final comment on each of the motions as we go through them. Following each of these, the members will vote on each of the 3 proposals. This will happen similar to how we did before, one after the other. So the same process I just described will be followed for each of the 2nd and the 3rd motions. If the motion to divide is defeated, we will proceed. Since we have completed the questions and the comment period, we will proceed with allowing Mr. Barasco 2 minutes. 1 minute? 2 minutes? 1 minute, my apologies, 1 minute to provide a final comment, and then we will just go to vote once. I understand we are almost ready. I will pause for 1 more minute while we wait for the resolution to be posted on the slides.
Operator, I just want to make sure that Mr. Bedford is on the line to prepare to present his motion to divide.
Yes, he is.
Thank you. So hang tight.
I understand that we are ready to proceed. We are still working on getting the motion on the screen, so I will ask Bridget to read out the motion, and then we will move forward.
So the motion in English is, be it resolved that the member proposal be considered as 3 separate motions. And en français, il est résolu que la proposition de membre soit considérée comme 3 motions distinctes.
Thank you. Mr. Bedford is recorded as having moved the motion to divide. Will a member in the room please second the motion?
Alex Barasco is recorded as having seconded the motion.
Thank you, Bridget. Mr. Bedford, you will now have the floor for 2 minutes to present the motion to divide.
The line is open.
Thank you. As the chair had noted, a motion to split or a motion to divide is a technical motion. It is useful where members wish to consider the components of a motion on their own merits and to amend, debate, accept, or reject each component of that motion. I believe that we've reached a point where members may wish to consider that possibility and may wish to consider accepting parts of the motion presented before us. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. I will now respond on behalf of the board. A member proposal, as we know, a member proposal, including 3 motions, was submitted by member Alex Barasco. This is the 3rd year in a row that Mr. Barasco has submitted proposals to CIRA's AGM. In response to members' feedback regarding the lengthy duration of our past 2 AGMs, we have opted to consolidate them into 1 motion as to deal with the same issue and respond to the request from members. Mr. Barasco submitted proposals request the disclosure of confidential documents prepared by Mercer, Boyden, and Stratford and Dr. LeBlanc that date back as far as 2015, as well as requesting the disclosures as engagements. As I stated, given that all 3 items in the member proposals are similar in nature, and with the view of conducting an orderly meeting with regard to the member feedback we have received on past AGMs, the 3 items should be discussed and voted on as a single matter. We communicated this to Mr. Barasco on July 29th, and he did not raise an objection. Following that request, we advised Mr. Barasco that we would permit him to present a single proposal motion in 6 minutes instead of the usual 2 minutes, because he raised a concern that he did not have sufficient time to deal with the 3 items. He did not respond to that correspondence. We will now open the floor for questions related to the motion to divide. Both members present in person and joining via webcast can view and type in questions to be read aloud using the question tool on the webcast platform. Questions can be upvoted by members. Questions will be limited to 240 characters typed. Responses to the questions will be limited to 2 minutes. We have allocated a total 7 minutes for the question period. Bridget will alert us when we have reached our time limit. Do any members have any specific questions with respect to the motion to divide? Operator, are there any questions on the line?
Not currently.
We have a question. I will read the question in the order of their upvote. So the first question, does the outcome of this motion result in financial gain for Mr. Barasco in any way? I will ask our corporate counsel to respond to this question.
Thank you, Jill. I can't really answer this question, but what I would reiterate is, as Jill mentioned, Mr. Barasco does have an active legal proceeding against CIRA. And as part of this proceeding, he is asking the court to appoint him to the board as a director. So while Mr. Barasco talks about democracy, he's asking the court to bypass the whole democratic process and appoint him to a director to the board. Thank you.
Next question from Mr. Barasco. Why do you keep reiterating the 3 years? I believe the question is in relation to reiterating our last 3 AGMs, including this one. And I'm reiterating it because we received feedback from a number of members and worked hard to incorporate that to run an orderly meeting. If I have misinterpreted the question, please resubmit. I will request that all members please be respectful on their comments, on their questions that they put into the question manager. Thank you. I will note we need to keep the questions related to the motion at hand, which is for the motion to divide. We did get a question. Did we get a seconder for the dividing motion? The answer is yes. Alex Barasco seconded the motion. In reviewing the remaining questions, I do not believe any of them are related on the motion before us to split. Reminder, we are in the question period. Please ensure anything you submit on the question forum are questions. Operator, are there any questions on the... Nothing? Sorry, we don't take live questions. I will give a couple final moments to see if any additional questions come in related to the motion to split. Seeing no additional questions, we will move to the comment period. Members joining us in person who wish to provide a comment to the motion are asked to raise their hand and a microphone will be provided. Members who are joining us virtually who wish to provide a comment must use the call-in function. Please keep comments short and concise and only related to this motion. Comments will be limited to 1 minute. Are there any members who have specific comments about the motion to divide?
Madam Chair, none on the phone.
Operator, are there any members on the line who wish to comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We will now proceed to voting on the motion to divide. I will ask Bridget to read the motion.
Be it resolved that the member proposal be considered as 3 separate motions, and in French, il est résolu que la proposition de membre soit considérée comme 3 motions distinctes.
Thank you. You will see the motion appear on your screen. Simply click on your selection, submit, and confirm, and then your vote will be automatically registered. Please vote now. Those in the room without a device, please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you are against the motion. Thank you. You may lower your hand. Please raise your hand if you wish to abstain from voting on the motion. Thank you.
There were 29 votes in favor, 77 votes against, and 7 abstentions.
Thank you. The motion is defeated. We will now return to the motion dealing with the member proposals. When we moved to the motion to split, there was 2 minutes left in the comment period. As such, we will provide 2 additional minutes for comments from members. If you are here in person and have a comment, as per usual, please raise your hand and we will bring you a microphone. If you are joining us virtually, you may dial into the number. Operator, are there any comments from our virtual participants?
At this precise moment, we do not.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we do have a comment from the phone.
Thank you. Please put them through.
Now introducing Mr. Daryl Bedford. The line is open, Mr. Bedford.
Thank you. Move to amend the main motion by deleting the words including the terms of reference given to the party listed and the cost incurred. That deletion would be on all three lines.
Folks, please bear with us for a moment where I confer with my corporate secretary. Once again, we are doing this on the fly, so it may take us a few minutes. I appreciate your patience. Caller, may I ask that for everyone's information, we're doing the same process we just did one more time. Caller, may I ask you to please state your name and the motion?
Yes, Daryl Bedford. And I move that the motion be amended by deleting the words, including the terms of reference given to, and then the party's name, and the costs incurred from each of the three lines of the motion.
Mr. Bedford, I'm going to read the resolution back to you. Be it resolved that the member proposal be amended to delete the words, including the terms of reference given to, and then the applicable term, and the costs incurred from the three motions. Is that correct?
Yes, from the three lines of the motion.
Thank you. Now, we're now going to proceed with the translation of that motion, so please bear with us.
While we wait for the translation of the motion, I will ask if we have a seconder for the motion. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Operator, do we have a seconder for the motion on the line?
No one dialed in at this time to second the motion.
Thank you. Operator, do we have a seconder for the motion on the line?
No one has dialed in for that specific purpose.
Thank you. Do we still have the individual who moved the motion on the line?
We still have Mr. Bedford on the line.
Thank you. We are going to allow Mr. Bedford to present his motion. He will have 2 minutes, at which point I will call for a seconder again. Mr. Bedford, you have 2 minutes to present the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I offer this amendment to delete those clauses of the motion, as I believe the interpretation may be correct that that is not something that the board could disclose, as they may have an agreement with those parties to not disclose the terms of reference or the payment that was made for them to prepare those reports. And really, I don't think having that information adds anything to the debate. The information in question is the reports themselves.
Thank you. I will again call for a seconder for the motion. Operator, do we have a virtual participant who has called in to second the motion?
Madam Chair, no one has dialed in for that purpose.
Thank you. The motion did not receive a seconder. As such, we are not proceeding with the motion, and we will return to where we were dealing with the motion from the member proposals as it was submitted. We had allowed for the full completed the full 7 minutes for the comment period from members. As such, we will finish with 1 minute for one final comment from Mr. Barasco. Mr. Barasco, do you have a final comment for 1 minute?
Okay, so I have a minute and I'm going to try and make it very quick. I think everybody here has seen how democracy and how CIRA operates, and that's your vote. You're the members, you're in charge. If you notice, when Rob Villeneuve, who's really a nice guy and has spent a lot of time, he didn't refute the comment that Helen MacDonald basically railroaded the entire study of the CEO compensation. So nobody has refuted anything that I've said. So what message does that leave you? Everybody talks about 3 years. Well, realistically, if CIRA had done what the members asked them to do, there wouldn't have been a long discussion last year nor this year. 3 years would have been cut into 1. So there's a tremendous amount of time that is spent dog whistling, trashing. Oh.
Your minute is over. That concludes the comment period. We will now proceed to voting on the motion as set out on the screen. The motion reads, be it resolved that CIRA should disclose the Mercer study/report that CIRA cites, including the terms of reference given to Mercer and the costs incurred. CIRA should disclose the Boyden and Stratford studies that CIRA cites, including the terms of reference given to each firm and the costs incurred. CIRA should disclose any reports developed by Dr. LeBlanc on overall governance, including terms of reference given to him and the costs incurred. You will see the motion appear on your screen. Simply click on your selection, submit, and confirm, and your vote will be automatically registered. Please vote now. For those in the room without a device, please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition of the motion. Thank you. You may put your hand down. Please raise your hand if you wish to abstain from voting on the motion. Thank you.
There are 30 votes in favor, 67 votes against, and 6 abstentions.
Thank you. The motion is not carried. It is now time to close the official formal portion of this meeting. A motion to conclude the meeting is now in order. May I please have a member in the room move the motion to conclude the meeting?
Gwen Beauchemin is recorded as having moved the motion to close the meeting.
Thank you, Bridget. Will a member please second the motion?
Matthew Gamble is recorded as having seconded the motion to close the meeting.
Thank you, Bridget. We will now proceed with the vote to close the meeting. You will see the motion appear on your screen. Simply click on your selection, submit, and confirm. Your vote will be automatically registered. Please vote now. Those of you who are in person without a device, please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion. Thank you. You may put your hand down. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition of the motion. Thank you. You may put down your hand. Please raise your hand if you wish to abstain from voting on the motion. Thank you. You may put down your hand.
There are 89 votes in favor of concluding the meeting, 9 votes against the motion, and 5 abstentions.
Thank you. The motion is carried. The CIRA 2022 AGM is now concluded. I want to express my utmost thanks for everyone for remaining with us for this full process. That concludes today's activities. There have been some great conversations and insightful learnings from our leadership team on the future of CIRA, as well as our industry experts on the privacy harms of tech monopolies and our collective power as users to decide how our information is shared and with whom. As with all AGMs, you will receive a survey asking for your input and feedback following today's event. I encourage everyone to take a few minutes to complete the survey and provide us with your feedback. We will review all feedback and work hard to incorporate as much as possible for future member events and AGMs. Before we go, I'd like to encourage all CIRA members to vote in CIRA's upcoming election. Members are able to vote from today until September 22nd. So remember to vote and spread the word through your networks. The more CIRA members we have engaged in the process, the better. As a CIRA member, your participation in CIRA governance directly contributes to helping us build a trusted internet for Canadians. Members in the room here with us, we were going to host a networking session in the lobby. I know that food has been brought around to many of you, so I believe we'll be there. Feel free to join us so we can raise our glasses to another successful year. I will certainly be there. I do want to just final with a huge thanks to all of the CIRA team who helped run this event. There's a monumental amount of work that goes into this. It's very complex, just in case you didn't notice that. And so I truly, truly appreciate the support of the team in this. Thank you, Julie and all. And thank you for everyone who joined us here today.